Hello everybody. Today we are going to discuss about the bureaucratic management theory given by Max Weber. Let us first understand what is bureaucratic management theory. This theory was introduced by Max Weber and he has stated that to manage an organization efficiently, it is essential to have a clear line of authority along with proper rules, procedures and regulations for controlling each business operation. What he is trying to say is that if you want to have a proper management, if you want to have a proper business operation, then there should be a clear line of authority. What do we mean by clear line of authority? That we should know who is going to report to whom. If we take the example of school, suppose there is a principal, then there is a vice principal, then we have supervisor and then we have teachers. Teachers will report to supervisors, supervisors will report to the vice principal and vice principal will report to the principal. That is, there is a clear line of authority. So, not only clear line of authority, but there is a need that we should have proper rules, we should have proper procedures, we should have proper regulations. What rules you are going to follow? So, every institution has its own rules. Like we are a 5-day working institution or we are a 6-day working institution. When there will be a holiday, if somebody is giving extra time, what is the provision of the overtime? How many leaves a person can take in a month? What are the different types of leaves he can take? So, there are certain laid down rules. Even for working, there is a procedure. These are the steps one has to follow. And what are the regulations? So, in each organization, we have a clear line of authority as well as clearly defined rules and regulations. Here it is talking about business operation because these all management theories we are borrowing it from the pure management. So, we will understand them, what they talk about, and then we will see to it that what is its implication in the educational institutions. So, this bureaucracy refers to the possession of control over a group of people, like the superior people have the control over their subordinates. They have the control over them because they are in the power, they are in the authority. So, they have the control over their subordinates. Now, if we understand this Max Weber, there are two important points in this bureaucratic management theory. It primarily focuses on number one, that is the hierarchical system, which we said there is a line of authority, there is a clear hierarchy that we have in an institution. There is a chairman, then there is a vice chairman, then there are different heads of the different departments, then they have the subordinates, then there are supervisors, then there are line managers, and then there are the workers. So, there is a hierarchy of a system and everybody knows whom to report. Coming to educational organization, if we talk about the higher education, we have a vice chancellor, we have registrar, we have the deans, we have the heads, and then we have the teaching faculty, and within teaching faculty also we have the professors, we have the associate professor, we have the faculties, that is assistant professor. So, in this way there is a clearly defined hierarchical system. The second important focus of this theory is that there are also clearly defined rules and regulations to carry out the work at the organization. So, the number of working hours in all the educational institutions are fixed. The number of teaching hours for the professor, for the associate professor, for the school teacher, for the assistant professor are clearly laid down. The number of leaves a person can avail are clearly laid down. The working hours clearly laid down. If you are sick, what are the kinds of leave you will get? That is also clearly laid down. Do you have a maternity leave? Do you have a paternity leave? Do you have a child care leave? So, all these are clearly mentioned in the rules and regulations. So, these are the two important points in the bureaucratic management theory. Number one is the hierarchical structure, and number two is clearly defined rules and regulations. These are the principles of bureaucratic theory: authority hierarchy, formal rules and regulations, division of labor, career orientation, impersonality, and formal selection process. Let us understand them one by one. Now, authority hierarchy. Authority hierarchy, as we had discussed earlier, talks about that there is a clear hierarchy. The position of each employee from top to low level is being clearly defined. Each one knows whom they have to report. Each one knows from whom they have to take an order. Like if I am working in Department of Education, can the head of the commerce faculty, commerce department come and give me the orders? He is head, the position, and I am a simple teaching faculty. But can the commerce faculty dean or the department of or the head of the Department of Commerce, can he come and give me orders? Am I supposed to take orders from him? No, because he is not my boss. My boss is in my own department, my head. So, I am supposed to report to my head. My head has the power that he can give me orders. So, I am supposed to take orders from him. So, there is no chaos. Otherwise, what will happen? All the heads from the different departments will come and start giving me orders, and I am not clear whom to follow and whom not to follow. So, this is a clearly defined structure. So, the roles are clear. So, each person role in the department are clear. They know from whom they have to take the order. So, this is what the authority hierarchy talks about. Moving on to the next principle. The next principle talks about the formal rules and regulations. That is, there should be clearly set of principles, procedures, rules and regulations in written form. So, these rules and procedures, what we are talking about, are laid down in writing, and they are universally followed by everyone who is working in the organization, irrespective of their position. If the number of casual leaves a person can take in an organization is 8, then everybody has 8 leave only, whether the person is the dean, whether the person is the head, or whether the person is a teaching faculty. So, each one has the same leave which the other person is getting. So, this has nothing to do with the position. So, these are the laid down rules. So, these rules, as I said, are followed equally by everybody. So, there will be no discrimination irrespective of what position you are holding in an organization. So, if there are maternity leave, if there is a provision of maternity leave, then everybody will get a maternity leave. It's not that if somebody is your friend, then you will give maternity leave to that person. If somebody you do not like, you will not give the maternity leave to that person. This will not happen. These are the laid down rules and you have to follow, otherwise they can be challenged. The next principle is division of labor. The work is clearly defined. The work is clearly divided. So, the whole task of any organization is divided into smaller tasks, and that every task is then assigned to the right person. the person who has capability to fulfill that task. So, right person for the right work. Like, I cannot ask a Hindi teacher to go and teach mathematics. So, I will only allocate the task of teaching mathematics to a person who is having the mathematics background. So, this will improve the work efficiency of the person, and it also will see that there is a proper allocation of job responsibilities. So, if you see, each one has their own work responsibilities. The dean's works are decided, laid down. The head's work are clearly laid down. Then we have the teaching faculties, their workload is clearly defined. So, there is no chaos like today who will go and teach the mathematics. It is clearly laid down that this is person A has to go and engage this class. So, there is a proper division of labor in a bureaucratic structure. Next is career orientation. So, this is the next principle of bureaucratic management, which says that the employees in the organization should be motivated to build a long term career in the organization. Like if somebody is working in your organization, they should be given enough motivation that they sustain in the institution, that they feel they are secure in the institution. If they do not get their job security, then whenever they will get an opportunity, they will leave the organization and go. So, there should be a long term career they could visualize. So, one should see to it that you are motivating your employees and showing them that you have a bright future here. You can grow here. Give them that security, give them that incentives, that if you will work nicely, you will be promoted. If there is no such kind of motivation, then you will not be able to sustain your employees in an organization, and the good people will leave the institution. So, this is another principle, that is the career orientation, that is one should see to it that people are motivated and they work for you. The next principle is impersonality. The impersonal relations develop among the employees, and this will lead to favoritism or nepotism. So, Max Weber has said that we need to follow the rules and regulations. So, here you are going by rules and regulations, so you are not biased towards anybody. There cannot be a nepotism, there cannot be a favoritism. If there is a rule that a person of this caliber should be appointed as a teaching faculty, then you have to go by those rules and regulations. Just because somebody is your relative, you cannot bring him to the organization and appoint him if he does not possess the required qualifications which are mentioned in the rules and regulations. So, this principle says that you should be impartial. The decisions are independent of the relations. Whether the person is your daughter, whether the person is your friend, whether the person is your brother, whether the person is your son, if the casual leaves are 8, then everybody will get the 8 casual leaves only, irrespective of the relation of that person with the top authorities. So, the decisions are based on rational and practical grounds. It is not on the basis of emotional or impersonal influence. The next point is formal selection process. See, Weber said that all the workers, all the employees should be recruited on the basis of the skills they pursue, on the basis of the expertise they have. You cannot simply have this formula first come first basis, जो भी पहले आएगा उसको मैं रख लूँगा. This will not work. Right. So, Weber in his bureaucratic management structure, he said that the people should be recruited on the basis of the skills and expertise they possess. And the rules are also laid down. What will be the recruitment criteria? Even for the promotion, Weber says that the promotion should also be based on the performance and merit. So, this will lead to better productivity. This will lead to better relations. This will lead to better job satisfaction. This will lead to employees' growth and satisfaction. So, if you know that your worth will be appreciated, if you know that if you will work and give your 100%, you have a chance to be promoted, then obviously you will give your 100%. So, these were the principles of the bureaucratic management theory. Now, coming to the advantages. What are the advantages of this bureaucracy? Number one, that is specialization. Now, we have seen that the work is divided among the employees on the basis of their expertise and on the basis of their specialization. So, that means this will result into a good job. So, there is specialization and expertise which is there. So, work will be divided on the basis of expertise. If you are a mathematics expert, then you will be given the pedagogy of mathematics, or you will be given the classes of mathematics. If you are expert in chemistry, then you will be allowed to teach chemistry. So, this is the advantages, that you get the specialized people working for it. The second is skill based. The recruitment is skill based. So, the employees which are recruited on the basis of their expertise. They are recruited on the basis of the qualifications which they possess. So, if there is any vacant job, then the right person for the right job is selected on the basis of the skills which is needed for that job, on the basis of the qualifications which are laid down for that job. The next point is predictability. So, when there is a systematic hierarchy, when there is a systematic authority and responsibility, that hierarchy is created, and when there are defined rules and regulations, when there are defined principles, procedures to be followed for any task, then definitely you can also predict the result. Like if you are following a number of hours, like for 1 credit course, how many hours we have to give? For 4 credit course, we have 60 hours to devote. So, everything is finished. So, once you will go for the 60 hours, definitely your syllabus will be over because you have planned accordingly. So, as the rules and regulations are laid down, everything is predefined. So, that means you can predict that what is going to be the future. The work will be finished in time, what kind of product you are going to give. Equality. Everybody is treated equal. There is no kind of biasness amongst the employees, because you are following the laid rules and regulations. There will be a fair judgment. So, there is no scope of biasness in this bureaucratic structure. Structure, it talks about a systematic organizational structure can be developed by framing the rules, regulations, methods and procedures which are predefined. So, you have a clear cut structure wherein the hierarchy is defined, wherein the rules and roles of the each and every position are being decided, where the rules are formulated, where the regulations are formulated. So, it is very structured. You know everything clearly, what is going to be done. Systematic record keeping. All the transactions, whatever is there, has to be recorded. If you are recruiting a person, then his data has to be recorded. His leave are managed. How many CLs he has taken, that is being recorded. Whether he has gone for some sick leave, that is being managed. Fine. So everything, your record is being created, like towards the end, the details of the employees are collected by the management. How many classes you have taken, what subjects you taught, which seminars you attended, what are the different kinds of assignments which you took. So all these kinds of annual reports are created. So there is a systematic record keeping of your business transactions as well as the employees details. Rationality. So these kind of systematic record keeping, these kind of following the rules and regulations leads to rationality. So all the decisions are based on rationality. You are taking the decision based on the rule. Suppose if you go and you say, okay, I want a leave. So you will see the leave record and you will tell whether you are eligible for that particular kind of leave or not. You go and ask, okay, I want to take the maternity leave, how many days you will give? I will read the ordinance and I will tell, okay, you can get this many days of maternity leave, and at one stretch how many days you can take. So it is laid down, it is clear cut. I will just follow the rule book which is being given there. So these are some of the advantages of the bureaucratic management theory. There are certain disadvantages also. One is one-way communication. This is mostly the top-down approach, wherein the orders are coming from the top. They will give the orders and the lower cadre people will follow the orders. So it is passing of information from higher order level to the lower order level. Very rarely the feedbacks are collected from the lower level to the upper level. Sometimes they do collect suggestions or the feedbacks that how the things are going on. If you want to bring some improvement, you can give the suggestions. But most of the time it is only one-way communication, that is from the top level to the lower level. Exploitation of power. As more power is given to the top level authorities, they are the one who are the decision makers. They are the one who are giving the orders. So there is a chance that they will misuse their power. They will misuse their power to meet their interest. They will misuse their power to dominate the subordinates and get the work done as per their wishes. So there are chances of exploitation of power. As you have seen, more it is centralized, more the power is centralized, more there is going to be a corruption. If the power is decentralized, then there are chances that everybody has a say in the decision making. Next, delay in business decision making. So delay in the decision making, we will say. So the top level management keeps the decision making power with itself. So the lower level managers will always rely on the top level managers. So even in the case of emergency, they do not have power to take immediate decisions. Like if we talk about this army people, if something happens, they have to seek the order from their officers that can they attack on Pakistan. They cannot immediately attack unless and until they get the orders from the superior bosses. Similarly, the decisions are being taken up by the top level managers. So if I am stuck up somewhere, I am not in a position to take the decision on my own. I have to seek from my higher authority that what am I supposed to do. And when the higher authority will tell me, then only I will be able to follow. So sometimes there is a delay in the decision making. Like suppose some mishappening happens and you do not know what to do. You are not in a position to take decision and you are calling your higher authorities that tell me, and you are seeking for their permission. By that time some kind of a problem you might face. So, the decisions are delayed because in the bureaucratic structure, if I have a problem, I will tell my head. My head will then go to the dean. Dean will then go to further. By the time the decision will come, the task is done, or it is already late and it has no meaning for it. Hinders innovation and creativity. As I said, that it is the superiors who are taking the decisions. So, you are being controlled by your superiors, you are being controlled by your higher authorities. You do not have that kind of freedom that you can apply your creativity, you can apply your innovations. So, you have to follow that rules and regulations whatever is given there. Fine. So, you want to take your students outside the garden, or you want to take them for a field trip, but you cannot take that decision because you have to seek the permission from the higher authorities. Though you think that yes, it will be more helpful for the students, it will be very creative if you take them to a zoo and you explain them about the animals, if you take them to a nursery and explain them about the types of plants, but you cannot take that decision. Inflexible and rigid methods. So, this bureaucracy does not entertain any kind of change or modification in the management system. They are very rigid. Like, if you have to work for 5 hours, it is 5 hours only. Your period is for 45 minutes. You cannot say, okay, today I will take 30 minutes. You cannot say, I will go into the 6th period, I will not go in the 7th period. It is very inflexible and very rigid. You have to go by it. You cannot bring any change. The modifications are not being entertained. And one more important point which is not mentioned here is wastage of time, efforts and money. As I said that there is delay in decision making. So, like for example, now if you want to order something, suppose if I want to buy a laptop in my project, I cannot directly go and buy the laptop. I have to seek the tender. I will seek the tender, I will show that tender to my higher authority, then they will give me approval, then I will put a bill. So, by that time it is very, very delayed. If you will interact with the research scholars, you will come to know that how their funds are being delayed from one table to another. The file keeps on moving and the researcher, he does not get the funds in time and his work gets delayed. So, these are some of the disadvantages of the bureaucratic management theory. Does it have any implications for education? Yes, it does have. If we see our education system, it is to a very greater extent a bureaucratic system only. There are strictly laid down rules and regulations and you have to follow those rules and regulations. At the most, the freedom which you get is within your classroom. How you are going to teach, that is your prerogative. The teaching method which you want to use, that is your prerogative. But the rules are laid down and you have to follow those laid down rules and regulations. So, that this makes it clear also, like you know how many leaves you have. You know whether you have a study leave or not. You know what is the procedure of taking the study leave. Fine. So, very clearly laid down rules and regulations, clearly defined hierarchy. It is very much clear that if I have a problem, I have to report it to my head. Fine. So, the tasks are also clearly defined, like the dean is responsible for the administrative duties, the head is responsible for the daily routine academic activities. So, the role of each person is clearly well defined. So, there is very much role clarity. Everybody knows what they are supposed to do. There is no chaos. Fine, very much clear. I know that I have to take the 5th period in M.Ed, I will go and take my class. I know I have a 3rd period and I have to teach this subject in B.Ed, I will go and teach. Clearly laid down rules and regulations. There is a proper recruitment policy. UGC has given a clear guidelines what are the recruitment policies. What are the qualifications for a professor? What are the qualifications for an associate professor? What are the qualifications for an assistant professor? How the career advancement scheme works? After how many years you can apply for the career advancement? So, proper recruitment policy is laid down. You need to have NET, you need to have PhD to enter into the assistant professorship. You need to have 8 years of teaching experience if you want to become an associate. You need to have guided one PhD student if you want to become an associate professor. You need to have 10 years of experience if you want to become a professor. Everything is laid down. The pay scale is also laid down. The 7th pay commission, what will be the scale of an assistant professor, what will be the scale of an associate professor, what will be the scale of an professor. Promotion policy based on merit, this is also we are finding. If you see the career advancement scheme, it is clearly written, you should have these many APIs, you should have published these many papers, you should have conducted this many seminars. So, clearly laid down promotion policy are also there, which is based on merit. So, we do find that to a greater extent this bureaucratic management structure is being followed in the educational institutions. So, with this I end up with the bureaucratic management theory. Thank you.